Everybody, hope you are doing awesome today. We're going to be looking at the sixth week of the 3-day weekends and 3 months entrepreneur program. And what we're doing today is looking at how you're going to drop your dud work, that work that really doesn't create a lot of results for you. It's lower impact, it's lower income. Maybe it's work that used to be high impact for you. To use the 80-20 example, maybe it used to be part of your 20%, and as you're growing, it's no longer. Maybe you've outgrown it. Maybe it's just something your customers no longer want. Maybe you just can't stand doing it. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with a conversation around what I like to simply call the 80-16-4 reallocation. And this is about taking your time and really more investing it in those highest impact, highest income activities by first getting clear about what those are so that you're not spending too much time doing things that aren't really performing for you. So in this conversation, there's a couple things we want to look at here, and it can be a little deep. You can ask questions along the way or at the end. But the first thing we need to do is understand what happens when people make investments. Most entrepreneurs, most business people, most people, about 80% of their time goes into low impact work. And I'm going to call this 1X work. So it could be $10 an hour work, it could be $25 an hour work, it could be $100 an hour work, it could be $1,000 an hour, whatever it is. But it's 1X, one times a certain amount. And then there is usually a certain amount of work that's done probably about roughly 16% of the time. And that work is worth 4 times that other work. And then there's a small percentage of the time, about 4% of the time, that's invested in 16% work. Or 16 times work, 16x work. And so what we have here is a situation where, of course, there's a lot of opportunity to grow if you can be doing what gets the best results for you. And so when you look at it from an hourly income standpoint, let's say, just to keep math simple, that we say that first level work is $10 an hour. Or if you want, you can add a zero. Maybe it's $100 an hour, but I'm gonna use 10 for this example. And then some of the time you're doing $40 per hour work, and some of the time you're doing $160 per hour work. Well, of course, in your calendar, what that means then is about 80% of the time, if this was a 50-hour work week, 40 of those hours would be being spent in 80% work. 16% or 8 of those hours in 4X work, and only 2 hours in this highest impact, highest income work. And this is a very common situation for a lot of people. So with all this time investment, what we want to do is see, can we do something better? Because the income that's coming in during these different times, if we look at it, we see that 38% of the income, about a third of the income roughly, comes in 80% of the time in 40 hours. Another 30%, roughly, third of it, is in 8 hours, and another third of it's in 2 hours. And so 62% of the income is made in 20% of the time. It's not exactly 80-20, but it's definitely an unbalanced relationship, and we'd want to make the most of that on the positive side if we can. So when we look at returns on the time investments, that 80% of the time returned 38%, 16% of the time returned 31%, and 4% of the time returned 31% of the income. So we'd want to, as much as possible, as long as that higher income reflects the fact that it's higher impact work, it's making a difference for our customers, it's good work, it's positive work, then we'd want to spend more time there if possible. Now, one of the things that people seem to not be aware of, or they think of and they forget about, is that, first of all, impact creates income. When you're creating huge value for others, you can charge more. People who are doing low impact work are selling commodities, things that are not really highly valued. They usually make lower incomes. The higher impact people make higher incomes because the impact usually comes indirectly in some way from the person delivering the value, not just the products. So to create high income, we need to be creative. Now, to do this, we need to free up time. So we need to delegate so we can make more money, we can work less hours, create more free time, have a greater impact, reach and help more people. Be that dentist, that person at the top of a business model who has the most skills and is doing the highest impact, highest difficulty, highest dollar per hour work, and then creating jobs for others. We want to be able to have you delegate everything you can profitably delegate. The low dollar activity. We want to delegate work you already assigned to your employees that maybe they've not been doing. Repetitive work, once you've created a process and you've mastered it. Administrative work, work you don't enjoy or you don't wish to do. And work that can be done by technology. So sometimes we're delegating to people, sometimes we're delegating to technology, or those people could be inside your company or they could be outside your company. Where to delegate? This is so critical. Most people don't see this. At work and at home. You probably already delegate at home. Maybe somebody mows the lawn or cleans the pool. When you can delegate the low dollar work, it still takes you a certain amount of time. So it still will take me, let's say, an hour to clean the pool, but in that same hour, maybe I'm making 100, 500, $1,000. Well, then that's worth delegating that, because if in spending an hour cleaning the pool, I miss out on anywhere from $100 to $1,000 or $50 or whatever it might be, then again, I should have been delegating. And even things like having your groceries delivered, having any sort of convenience. When somebody cooks for you, you go to a restaurant, you're delegating. So it's often easier and safer to delegate in your personal life or at home, because very often there's not a long ongoing contract. So for example, if I go to a restaurant and eat dinner, that's a one-time contract. I might go back, but if I don't like the food, I'm not going back there. It's often easier and safer. And the goal is to free up time in your life just in general so that you can play more and work less. At some point, you might find yourself really in a more rigid 3-day weekend, 4-day work week schedule. At times in my life when our kids were younger, I found that. Now, as our kids are getting older, they're 17 and 14, they might have time to do something during the middle of the week, and I need to take off in the middle of the day. So I coach my daughter's volleyball friends and her sometimes. And so from that perspective, I might work on a Friday so I can free up time on the Tuesday that I went out. So overall, again, just playing more or doing my highest impact, highest income work. Definitely, as mentioned, we want to eliminate before we delegate. Some activities simply need to be gone. Wasteful activity should not be done at all. Any activity that loses you money, for the most part, should go. Unless you know it's a proven loss leader, for the most part, don't do it, or at the very least, minimize it as much as possible. There's 3 main strategies I'm going to suggest you implement. The first is to drop certain things, and that's either to eliminate the useless and unproductive tasks. Again, delegating saves time, but eliminating saves time and money. You do not want to delegate something that does not even need to be done, because then you're paying for that to be done, and then you have to work to make money to do that, so you're still actually costing yourself time. And then sometimes you just ignore things. If they're not really relevant, you can put them to the back of your list and just see if something happens or not. Some customers are like that, some opportunities are like that, and some things you'll just never get to. That's fine. Delegate. When you can automate with technology, do that first. Technology is usually more predictable, simpler, and without being mean to humans, technology does not usually need its feelings to be taken care of. Humans, we need our feelings to be taken care of. So until something really shifts with AI, that's where we are right now. And if you're AI and you're listening, no offense there, love you, appreciate it. Don't want to hurt your feelings. And then delegating to competent stewards. So that could be people inside your business, people outside your business, employees, freelancers, contractors, whatever it might be. So once we do that, then there's one little thing here in gray. There's certain work you need to maintain. It might be boring. You might be the only one who can do it. Or it might be work that it's sensitive in nature, it's confidential, and so you don't delegate that. But for the most part, we want to scale up your time in the profitable projects and the exciting projects, so you're enjoying the journey and you're enjoying what you're doing. In general, you want to delegate any work that's roughly a quarter of your hourly income. So if you average $60 per hour, that's not bill for $60 per hour, because you might not bill all 2,000 hours, to use an average, at least United States, 40 hours a week by 50 weeks model. But if you average $60 per hour, let's say you make about 120 a year, then you want to delegate any work that's $15 per hour or less. You want to make sure that you're earning at least one of those 4 hours that you delegate, because you want to pay for that. But then the extra 3 hours, you could either reinvest your time and make more money. You could take time off. It really depends on what you want to be doing. So in this, to use an example here, I'm going to use an example of what it might look like to implement all of these strategies off of a calendar that you're working off of. I'm going to zoom in here on this a little bit. So let's say I first start out by delegating some things and trimming my hours. So originally I was working from 7 to 6 with an hour for lunch. And I found 5 hours of work that did not need to be done. So I've removed that, I've eliminated that. I found 5 hours of work that I could just let it go, not worry about it. So from 7 to 9 a.m., 5 days a week, I've just let go of work and it's not important enough. I'm not really concerned about it. Then about an hour worth of work at 9 o'clock, and it doesn't have to be at this time. I'm just mapping it out so it can be easily seen. But I found 5 hours per week that can be automated with technology. I'm going to maintain that high impact, high income work, the green and the blue work. And then I've delegated another 25 hours that I'm going to pay somebody to take care of that. And of course, I might have had to pay for the automation as well, because usually there's some sort of software or tool I need to pay for. And so what happens now is that 15 hours, those first 15 hours, I just don't need them because they've been freed up from things that were eliminated, ignored, or automated. And now I've dropped from 50 hours a week to 35. Now I could stay there if I'm comfortable, but I also delegated 25 hours, which freed up even more time. And I still need to make sure I'm able to pay for this. So I'm going to keep this real simple, I'm going to turn this 35 hours into 32, and I'm going to make this a simple 4-day work week. I'm going to completely take off Friday. I'm going to drop 3 more hours. I'm going to keep my green and blue work. And then what I'm going to look to do is on Mondays and Thursdays, I'm going to see what I can do to stir up even more of that green work. Maybe I'll get some blue as well. But in this example, I'm looking to stir up the green work, and it's going to take some time. It might even take me 2 half days, so a whole other day to stir up more work, but it's worth it. And so now my income has gone up, and I'm taking some of the rest of the time to manage my delegations, my team, the office. And so if I look at the difference now, 80% of my income is coming from my highest impact, highest income work, 20% for my middle impact work, if you will, compared to before. But if you look at these schedules, before I was taking $1,040 per week in 50 hours. That's averaging $20 per hour. Now I have $1,600 in 32 hours, which is averaging $50 per hour. It's a big difference. Now, of that 1,600, again, I delegated some work, so I might need some of that. If I delegated 25 hours, and let's say I'm paying $16 an hour, that would mean I'd need to pay another $400, so I'd be back down about $1,200. If I was paying $20 an hour, I'd be back to $1,100. So I'd be about the same amount of income, but now in 32 hours instead of 50. And of course, as I'm working with people like this, I'm learning to do even higher and higher impact work. It puts me in a very strong position as I grow going forward. And again, I freed up 18 hours per week times 50 weeks. That's 900 hours of free time, even if I don't make a whole lot of extra income from it. And so again, 53% more money and 18 less hours per week. And so what we want to be able to do is take these ideas and apply them. And there's a tool that we have that allows you to make a list of what are those things you need to eliminate and how much does that save you per hour? What do you need to ignore? What do you need to automate, delegate, maintain, and scale up? And it starts letting you get very clear about what you can be doing better with your time to be in a more powerful position. And overall, what we're looking to do is make the most of your time, have you doing as much as possible that highest impact, highest income work. Now, once we've done that, we can really solidify what I like to call your big 3 schedule. And this is where really simply you decide that on certain days, let's say we are going with the same framework that we're having Fridays off, that on certain days, in this case, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that you're doing your most important things. In my case, mine is to create content, to coach people, and to connect with people. So creating content might be these slides and what you're seeing in front of you. Connect people or coaching with them. I might be whether I talk to that person individually or not, or training people or podcast interviews. But overall, those are the 3 things that make me the most money, either directly or indirectly. And so if you could only do 3 activities for the rest of your career, and you had support around you, the other things are still getting done, but they're getting done because you've also earned money to hire people to do that, what would those 3 things be? And that's how you create your big 3 schedule. And once you've gotten clear on that, then you can start getting specific to the types of projects you'd like to be doing. So the tool we have here, and it's called the Vision Expander Worksheet. And I've used this for many years now. And really all we do is we look at your business and say, look, there's some things that we're going to add to your business or schedule, and there's some things we're going to drop. And so first we brainstorm and say, well, what could I do? And I made this for, let's say, a person who's a coach or a thought leader or a consultant. And this person says, well, what I would do is I could do some private coaching, group work. That would make me $100,000, but it's going to cost me $400, or excuse me, 400 hours. So I'd put a minus 400. And this can be typed in the spreadsheet version of this. I'm going to sell and deliver group coaching. Again, I'm going to make hopefully $100,000. I'm going to do that in 200 hours. So I've got these ideas of what I could do. If I was able to do all of them, it's saying here that I could make $450,000 in 1,000 hours. Now, again, this is a hypothesis. There's nothing that guarantees that this is going to happen, but this is what I think is going to happen. And then what I do is I say, well, what are some things that I would do to free up time? Because I can't just, well, I could, but I don't want to just add 1,000 hours. I don't want to add 20 hours a week. So what are some things I could be letting go of? Oh, I'm currently editing my podcast, or I'm doing social media management. I'm getting myself on podcasts by scheduling those interviews or sending out the paperwork, the emails and the follow-up work. So these are things that I could free up time. So now I've got hours gained, but then the income game is negative. It's costing me to do that. So then what I'm going to do is pick what are the 3 most powerful things that I'm going to focus on. And this is going to be my main focus for the upcoming year. So if I can do these 3 things, that would make me $300,000 if I'm accurate, and it'd free up 700 hours. And then if I could pair that with these 3 other things, that would actually lead to a net gain of $279,000 if I'm correct, and freeing up 800 hours of my time. So this is still a hypothesis. It might not turn out the way we think, but what I'm looking to do is make it as clear as possible that there's a possibility that I could be making a whole lot more money in a whole lot less time, and I'm at least going to start moving in that direction. Once I've done that, then I'm going to look at what I could do to eliminate the duds from my schedule. And so with the dud eliminator, we take sort of a similar process, and we say, look, there's going to be some certain things we want to let go of. But first, we're going to set a baseline. We're going to say, let's say that when I bill, I don't always bill, but when I bill $250 per hour. And let's say I can bill 20% of the time. So my average hourly value to the business is $50 per hour. Now what I'm going to do is look at what are some things that maybe I just need to let go of. So doing social media during work hours. You know what? I just need to drop those 50 hours. I'm currently wasting 50 hours. I just need to stop watching. And that'll free up 50 hours for me at the very least. And if I reinvested those at my billable hourly rate, that's $250 per hour, that'd make me another $12,500. If I invested those at my average hourly, that'd still be $2,500. And as I go down the page, each one, I'm going to stop watching as many emails where other people are trying to sell me courses and stuff. Why? I've got 3 or 4 courses already. I need to implement them, and I'm going to focus on implementation. I'm going to stop checking my stats so often. This is something I used to do a lot. I'm getting better at it. I still do it a little bit much at times, but of going back and checking out my podcast stats and my YouTube stats and my likes on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, I'm just going to stop doing it as much. And again, at the very least, I'm going to free up time, or I might free up money as well if I reinvest it. Getting on the wrong shows as a podcast guest definitely costs me time. I'm going to create some criteria that the team members that are working with me are going to use as we get me booked. And then also hosting the wrong guests also costs me a lot of time. So as much as possible, I'm going to look to free up my time. And in this example here, that would be 220 hours of things I could just drop, things that are not helping me. And those 220 hours, if I divided that by roughly 50 weeks, that'd be at least about 4 hours per week that have just things that I don't need to be doing, almost 5 hours. And if I could let go of those things, at the very least, I could simply take those days off. Because again, there's no other upside. These are duds. These are things that I just need to let go of. If I can drop these, it creates more freedom for me and more ability to live the lifestyle I want. So I hope you find this helpful. This is how you start dropping your dead work and start creating more time to do the things that are the highest impact, highest income work. It sounds great to say, I'm just going to hustle my way through it. I'm going to make more money. I'm just going to work harder. But we have limited amounts of energy sometimes. And if you find yourself using caffeine drinks or caffeine to get your way through the day, if you find yourself not getting the sleep you want, you find yourself gaining a lot of weight because you're eating sugary foods. I've done that so many times where I just put on a lot of pounds because I was needing sugar to get me going because I wasn't getting exercise, I wasn't moving a lot. If we can, instead of first just adding hours, if we can first let go of the things we don't need to be doing, it creates a situation where we can be healthier, happier, and really enjoy your family, your friends, your freedom, and your life. Thanks so much for listening.